start here, Bry. It's Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, by the way. How are you? I hope you're having a nice Friday night. That may have been the most entertaining preseason game I've ever watched, and give me 82 of those for the regular
I'll take
season.
That. Yeah,
my goodness,
especially that third period and overtime. I mean, the energy in that in the end of that game is not like anything that I've recall seeing in a preseason setting in quite some time. And and it's just the nature of it, right? That it's points aren't there and stuff like that. So sometimes it's hard to get up for games like this. But this group certainly caught fire there in the third period on both sides, and it was I had the exact same sentiment that you did. That I don't recall a preseason game recently that had that kind of jump to it.
Yeah, I mean, you had the first period where the Flyers played really well, the pushback in the second, then the Flyers in the third, they get it tied, and you go to overtime, which was crazy, and a couple of crazy saves by, let's talk about Cal Peterson real quick. Bri, in that first game, John Tortorella said, he didn't have much help in front of him, but you got to give me a save. That's the goalie's job. And, we were kind of questioning the lateral movement, in particular the first goal he gave up against the Devils. He seems to have adjusted that because the blocker save that he made, the blocker, by the way, is on his left hand. He's an opposite hand goalie, like a goofy foot. And he gets across on Zacha and makes an unbelievable blocker save. He was excellent in this game.
He really was. And that first game in Newark, I found myself wondering, like, I don't know anything about his history. And I think I asked a couple of people, I was like, was he hurt last year? Like, he looked like somebody that is coming back after not having played for a long time in that game in Newark. And again, like you said, Torts alluded to it, that he didn't have much help in front of him, and the entire the entire team was pretty dead-legged. And he actually got into that a lot yesterday, that sometimes he says his general managers don't like him because they go into those first games so dead, but he thinks it's important to start the camp the way that he does. This was an extremely, I think, reassuring bounce back game for Cal Peterson, that there wasn't something wrong or whatever. I mean, this is the kind of goaltending I think that earned him the look he got from the Kings, and this is the kind of goaltender that the Flyers were hoping that they would get in that deal overall, when they were getting him and Helge Grans back from Los Angeles. Danny Briere had talked about it, that there's been way too many people departing Philadelphia and getting better with other teams. They want to see that come the other way now, and hopefully this is perhaps one case of that.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Jonathan Quick. You knew Quick would not hand him the baton, and maybe the pressure got to him or whatever it is. The situation wasn't right. But what that game was tonight for Cal Peterson, in my view, especially after the first preseason game and after the rough year he had last year, was a massive building block to move forward with. I mean, what a performance by him. Let's talk about another standout performance, because the game that Bobby Brink played, I got like 4 different texts from 4 different people saying, boy, Brink looks much better. And we don't know how much the hip was bothering him prior, before he had the surgery and then missed half of last year. He looks like a different player that just has he has more burst, and he's not the fastest guy. He's got a different skating stride, but he's got great burst now. And the vision we saw every element of his game tonight. We saw the vision, we saw a clutch goal, and I mean, the shootout goal was absurd, to go backhand shelf off the bar and end on a sprawled out Linus Ullmark. Bobby Brink could not have put a better game on film than he did tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not absurd to think that you might put a guy like him on the roster for reasons that include the fact that he can score in a shootout, because we all know how shootouts have been around here over the years. But, he's a very interesting case, because he's one of these guys that was on the radar of the collective radar of Chuck Fletcher and Brent Flair when he was in high school, because he was playing in Minnesota. There was a family relationship there. So he was on their radar probably ahead of where most teams would have seen him. And then, of course, the Flyers are able to grab him in the second round in 2019, and they do so again, with the they were able to acquire that pick, that second round pick, and that was the year they traded down. They took
Twice.
Cam York over Cole Caulfield, and this is the kind of thing that they were thinking of when they saw Brink back in high school. And again, it's when you look at the overall structure of hockey, it's not often that you're seeing 20, 21-year-old kids have to have hip surgery. That's more of a goaltending thing. And it's a goaltending thing further down the road. So whatever this was that kind of developed on him probably wasn't something that they saw coming. And now that it is repaired, it looks like he's back on the trajectory that the Flyers
and
hoped he would be on coming out of that
surgery is not something that becomes chronic, like some other areas where you would have to, if you get it repaired, then it's never going to be like it was. The hip, when they fix that, they can fix that. And that's crazy.
You remember Ray Emery? He was obviously goaltending. That's where you normally see the hip injuries.
The Bo Jackson injury, right?
Yeah, he had the Bo Jackson injury. He wasn't supposed to ever be able to play again, and the doctors were saying at the time that the goal was just to maintain a quality of life that included walking. But he fought his way back from it and was able to continue his career and ended up winning Stanley Cup. So, that's I don't know. I'm not an expert in any way on hip injuries, but it does seem like that the technology has come along where they can, certainly have a very, very effective procedure that can get an athlete back to where he should be.
Yeah. 4 times the body weight when a goalie goes into a butterfly is what goes into the outside part of his hip. And it's brutal on the hips. And I've been waiting for this technology, and I'm going to have to take advantage of it soon at 51. Brink, great game tonight. Just a good performance and a real quality hockey game tonight. I like what Fridge said, the Strucker was there. They killed 3 out of 4 penalties. Pasternak scored on that 1 power play in the first period. But, man, what a good performance tonight. What an entertaining hockey game. And if this is – look, I don't know what preseason – if it's an indicator of what's to come this year, but that was a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Let's talk real quick before we get out of here about Morgan Frost's shootout goal too, because that was really pretty. And I hate what he did, because I hate when guys come in that slow and it's just kind of droning on, and it's who's waiting out who. But he outweighted Olmark, and that turned out to be the game winner.
Honestly, what I don't like is when they come out wide, because I feel like when you come out wide, you lose your angle. You have less to shoot at. But in this particular case, he came out wide, and then he comes across almost to a degree where we're watching the game because of our setup right now. We know that they didn't whistle it off, right? So we know that it went in, but we're watching a delayed feed, and he's coming across almost at an angle where it's like, wow, that might be really close to like blowing that dead, because he's not going forward anymore.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what he did. He came down, he came across almost flat. And if you can do that effectively, that does, I think, give you a little bit of an advantage over the goaltender, because now it's like, okay, your angle's back, and now it's who makes the first move. And you can come across and possibly see an opening, and that's what Morgan did in that situation.
And actually, he's a left-hand shot, and he comes in from the left side to the right. You would think a left-hand shot would come in from the right to the left, leading with a stick, but the stick is actually trailing the player, which does make it probably a little bit more difficult on the read, and he goes against the grain where the goalie was, not where the goalie's going. So,
and you have to, you're coming in left-handed from the left. By the general nature of the shootout, you've got to be able to open yourself up to get a shot off without turning around to skate backwards.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that is illegal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe you can skate backwards as long as you're going forwards. But, that is a tricky maneuver to come across like that. And, again, if it's, something that he can do and do it consistently and other teams can't scout it, then I'd love to see that keep going on.
Yeah, cue Trevor Zegras or somebody like that to take a shootout attempt and take it from center ice skating backwards. We'll see that this year now, of course. All right, that's going to put a wrap on the post-game show. We're right back at it tomorrow night. Flyers are going to come home for their first preseason home game tomorrow against the Devils. We'll have all the coverage for you at 6:50 on 97.5 The Fanatic and the Flyers Broadcast Network. But let's thank a few people before we get out of here. Let's start with our in-studio engineer. How about Mike Vito? Mike, who was on the highlights tonight? Maddie Minarik on the highlights tonight did a fine job indeed. For Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk, Brian Smith, I'm Jason Martinez. You've been listening to Philadelphia Flyers Hockey, a 4-3 shootout win on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Good night, everybody.